Hi, everyone, and welcome back. We are talking today about a very exciting topic. It's Agentforce for developers. I've been in DX, everything there, really like main sessions, and it's all about Agentforce and the new stuff. So I thought like at least we need to get the flavor of what Agentforce for developer and how you can use it for different scenarios and use cases, so you can start getting used to it. And in the future as well, my plan is to combine between the regular topics. I would love to teach in Apex and coding and try to embed as well from time to time topics how to like use Apex in development to enhance prompt builder, the actions in the agents as well. So if you have any topics in mind as well that you would love to learn more about the Agentforce and development, let me know and I will try to incorporate it in the sessions. The sessions will be recorded and uploaded on YouTube channel. I will start a new playlist for Agentforce. So whenever we have a related topic to it, it will be added there. So it will be a new playlist. So it's easier to reach. Today's the main focus is about Agentforce for developers and how we can install it, how we can use it, and different use cases. The use cases is based on my trials and experience so far with Agentforce for developers. So feel free to add other use cases that maybe you worked with or you had the chance to try it as well. We are all learning together, and hopefully we get the most out of Agentforce for developers together in this session. And hopefully we get the time to finish all the use cases I want to show you. I don't want to rush it. I want to show you as much as I can. So if needed, we can continue next time. And maybe next time, if we go over today, everyone who had hands-on with it, like, will be more than welcome to represent more use cases or more scenarios so we can all learn together. So Agentforce for developer, it's like you can think about it as an assistant with you while you are working. It's something that you can use in whether through Visual Studio Code or Code Builder. Within the Visual Studio Code, we'll see today how quickly we can install it and set it up. With the Code Builder, it's already installed and ready for you to use. It's like an AI assistant with you that can help you with different scenarios and different use cases while working in Visual Studio Code. So everyone, I guess, by now they have used ChatGPT or other AI, generative AI tools. So the good thing and interesting thing with Agentforce for developers, it's within Visual Studio Code, and Salesforce is working on adding the best practices and the good things like we need to follow, and the best practices we have to follow, and the bad practices we have to avoid. So it's like very customized to Salesforce and Apex and LWC development. So with now and the time they keep adding to it, it will be more powerful. And in my opinion, we have to start getting used to it and see how we can use it and be more familiar with it, because it needs some learning curve on how you write the prompt or the right instructions in the dev assistant, for example, to get a better result. And today I will try to demonstrate as well some variations and how these variations can impact the output as well, to make it more clear how we can think about the prompt and how writing the prompt can impact the output as well. I'm just submitting someone. Okay, so today through the session, hopefully we'll talk about different features within Agentforce for developers. We'll see how we can use it to generate SOQL statements, how we can use it to generate LWC or Apex. So we'll see different features and different capabilities and how we can use it and benefit from it. The main capabilities we'll be talking about is the Dev Assistant, and we'll see how we can use it for multiple scenarios. We'll see how the command palette can be used to generate code and add it in the file directly where you want it to be added. And we'll check as well the auto completion for the code and how we can disable it if we don't want to. The only thing that I want just to remind everyone before like talking about each capability separately, please don't rely 100% on the output that the code is generated, because it's still an AI generated code. Sometimes it will have everything that we need. Sometimes it will have all the best practices, and sometimes it may be missing best practices or missing use cases. If you're writing test classes, for example, it may be missing some use cases that you need to cover. So I'm still encouraging everyone to learn coding and learn the basic syntax and learn how to do things by yourself first, so you can judge the code that is generated and you can enhance it. Like, it's there to help you be faster and to assist you, but it's not there to replace developers and the development knowledge as well. Why we want to use it? It can increase your productivity because some of the simple tasks, some of the repetitive tasks you may be doing, it can help you with, or it can give you a starting piece of code where can take it and add on top of it. So it's very good idea to learn how to use it, because it can enhance your productivity and increase like the velocity of your code and how you can finish your tasks. You know, because it's like targeted to Apex and LWC, so most of the time it will have the best practices and the things that we are looking into having in our code. So sometimes that helps reducing the errors or the issues, but again, it's not a replacement for human, and it's not a replacement for code reviews. Like, we still need whoever is using the tool to check if the code is good to be used as is, or we can enhance it. And at the same time, it's highly recommended to have a peer code review, whether it's the lead developer or another developer with you in the team, because someone else can catch an error or an issue or a missing case that you didn't catch in the beginning. It can be helpful writing some queries. It can be helpful as a starting point to test generation. Most of the developers don't enjoy writing test cases, but again, during the sessions of unit test classes, we discussed how it's critical and how it's important to write it and write it the right way and cover all the scenarios, negative and positive. So it can be a starting point, even if it didn't cover everything. And it can help you, and we'll see today, to add some comments to document the code or to understand the code, because sometimes developers who wrote the code are not there anymore. And even if they aren't there, they may forget what they did. And if they didn't do a good job from the beginning writing their proper comments and documentation, it may take time to understand what was written and what was there. So having something to explain the code or add documentation and comments to us, it can accelerate the process of getting familiar of the existing code that you didn't write yourself. So it's very powerful tool to use, and it's a good starting point as well. The first part, we want to see how we can install it. So to install it on Visual Studio Code, if you go and open your Visual Studio Code, you'll find here on the left the extensions. So you need to open the extensions and you need to search for Salesforce extension pack expanded, extension pack expanded. And in this one, for me, it's installed. If not, like you would be able to install it. If you scroll down here, one of it is Agentforce for developers. So if you install this pack, it will install the Agentforce for developers with you as well. So that's the first part that you need to do. Like in Code Builder, you don't, it's already enabled. The second part is I was checking when I was preparing these slides, I found this module. I will pass in the chat the link for it. Let me do it here in the chat for you. It was talking about the Agentforce for developers and why we need it. And part of it, it was talking about what we need to do before starting. So beside installing the extension in Visual Studio Code, there is here a setting that we need to enable in order for the AI to be working and function properly. I didn't try to disable it, to be honest, and see how it's impacting the output, but like feel free to go through the steps here and enable it. And if you want to test the impact, you can disable it. It's like you go to code, settings, and you search for the setting mentioned in the trailhead, and you enable it here. So feel free to play around and see if it impacts negatively if you disable it or not. But as per the trailhead, they mentioned we needed to in order for the AI to work as expected. So that in terms of the installation. It's simple. Add the extension if you're using Code Builder. I didn't try it myself, but my understanding that Agentforce for developers is installed and enabled by default, and the same for the settings, it's enabled by default. So we have different features that we want to explore together in terms of Agentforce for developer. So there is the Dev Assistant. It's more like your personal assistant and your personal like ChatGPT kind of conversation that can help you do some actions of generating code, adding comments, and you copy it. Comments, yeah, and you copy and paste it, explain to you the code, and we'll talk more in depth how it can help. There is comment palette, the autocomplete, and the test generation. So we'll talk about each of them, and we see how we can benefit from it. For the Dev Assistant, as I mentioned, like it's more like as a buddy. Like sometimes I don't remember the wording, but like we used to say in university when I was in computer science that we can have a peer and we are both working next to each other on the same computer, thinking and working together. So you can think about the Dev Assistant to be your buddy. It's helping you to get your job done faster. It can help answer questions and help you with different scenarios. So I prepared different use cases where I tried myself use the Dev Assistant and see like if I would get right answers or like useful answers. So I want to show you some of them. So for the Dev Assistant, if you go to the Visual Studio Code, you'll find here the Agentforce like icon. This is your Dev Assistant. So for the Dev Assistant, like first of all is asking coding questions like we are learning coding and we have questions like for example, I can type, I'm new to development and I want to learn about best practices to write triggers. So I can say here, what are the best practices to write triggers? And I can type here the Agentforce for developer now with thinking, and it will get me the answers to my questions. So it's here started to give me like, and if you try it, okay, so quickly, because there is a question and I don't want anyone to be lost, how I got to the Dev Assistant, I went to the Agentforce icon here on the left, and I clicked on it. So that opened for me the Dev Assistant, where it gave me an option to chat or write my questions or my prompt here. So what I did here is I asked, what are the best practices to write questions? Because that's one of the things I tried to use the Dev Assistant with, and it was able to help me. And the like amazing thing, like it's generative AI, and it will never give you the same answer. Like I didn't see this sample of code with the answer before when I tried it before the session. It was just bullet points. So this is a different way of them providing the answer. So it started to give me, you have to avoid recursion, bulkification, and give me an example. It gave me that we use the context variable. So it started to answer my questions and with sample of code. And sometimes it won't give you the sample of code. Like it depends on the response. Like it's not the same for everyone. So if everyone tried on their machine, we would not get the same exact format and answer. But at the end, it's answering my question. For example, if someone is learning about code and they don't know, for example, they heard that we talk about static methods, we can ask, what is a static method in Apex? I want to learn more about it. So I type my prompt, my question is the prompt, and it starts explaining to me, for example, here, what is the static method and how it can be written, what's the signature for the method, and it started to tell me even how to use it, for example, here. It gave me an example for the static method and how to write it and how to use it. Again, it's a very powerful tool, but we don't have to rely on it. We should not be relying on it 100% because we don't want to, for example, to learn something wrong. So I would recommend, for example, if you learned already how to write triggers, and you know the best practices, but you want to refresh your memory, it's a good way to ask the question, because if it tells you something wrong, that will ring a bell and you will be able to judge if the output was right or wrong. But don't rely 100% blindly on the output and take it as the right answer to use. So your knowledge is key while using that. So that's the first use case that I found, like we can use the Dev Assistant to help us with, is asking general question and get me answers. Again, if someone wants to write a SOQL, or they are learning how to write a SOQL statement, and they learn now the syntax and they know it, but they want some help with it, I want to show you the object that I will be using in my example. So you know what are the fields, because I want to show you how we should be grounding or making sure that the AI is not returning wrong stuff or wrong fields for me. So I have here, I have created a custom object called project, and I had created here some fields. This project is related to a contact. I have end and start date. I have is active with this API name, and I have the name. If I go to the Dev Assistant, I can clear the chat so I don't have everything together. So to clear it, you go to the X here, and when you hover on it, it will say clear current chat. You click on it. For example, now I want to write a query. So I can say, for example, write a query, write a SOQL query. So I have to start with a verb to tell the prompt what I need to do. Write SOQL query to return project records in the org. So I will say I want to return the SOQL. I want SOQL to return the project. This is the object API in the org. If I hit enter now, you okay, so it remembered like what was happening. Okay, yeah, no. See here, I have the status. I don't have a field called status. So it added wrong fields along the way. If I say, for example, I want to return the SOQL query for projects that are active, records in the org that are active, you will find that it will write me a SOQL query now. It says like start and end date, status, project name. I don't have a field called project name. And it said status is active, and I'm referring to active with a checkbox here. So that because I didn't ground my prompt, like I didn't give the prompt enough information to get me the right fields or the right output from the query. How we should do that? In Mac, I do Command Shift P to get to the palette, and we run the query like the command called sfdx refresh as object definition. So I will tell Visual Studio Code to get me the as object definition. The as object are the objects in your org. So if I have a project custom object, I want to get all the details for this as object. I want the fields, the API names for the fields. So I will hit it. It will ask me, do you want to get everything for standard, for custom, or just the custom or just the standard? For the demo, for example, I choose custom. It's getting all the as object definition from the org. When we run this command, what will happen is if you go to .sfdx in Visual Studio Code, you open here, there is something called typings. It created typing under sObject for this object specifically, or for all the custom, because we chose all the custom objects. So that tells the Visual Studio Code now knows that we have ID is deleted. What are the fields? Those are all standard. They don't have __C. Then it has like here that we have a relationship with a contact. We have the contact, start, end, and is active. So if we go back to my dev assistant and I use the same command, and I will keep the project __d.cs file open, because if I have it open and I run this query, that means I'm telling the dev assistant to rely on this file to ground and make sure not to include any random fields and any random values in the output that they will provide. So we are avoiding hallucinating in the response, like we are avoiding having anything that is wrong. So let's try it now while we have the file open. When I have the file open now, you'll find that we have here select ID name, start and end date, and is active now came. It's not relying anymore on something called status, and project name is wrong. So again, human eye needs to be there. Like you don't take it, copy and paste. You have to review it as well. But at least now it's returning the where clause as is active true and not relying on the status. When I tried it, to be honest, before the session, this query was 100% perfect. Like I didn't have any issues with the output that we got. Okay, so let me repeat myself. Some people are saying it's a bit too fast. So I opened the command palette. For MacBook, it's Command Shift and P. You can write refresh as object definition. And because I used it before, it's in the latest commands for me. So all you do is you click on it to instruct Visual Studio Code to refresh this object definition and to get the latest. So if I add a new field, I need to come and do it again. If I add a new object, I need to come and do it again. If I'm interested in standard objects and I have only refreshed and got the custom, I need to come and do it again. So you click on it. When you click on refresh as object definition, it will ask you, do you want to refresh standard and custom, or you want to refresh only custom and standard as object? The question, there is a question in the chat. The getting the latest from the manifest and getting the latest from the org, that will get you the definition of the fields and the object in the folder first app main default and then objects. When we do the as object definition here, it gets me this files, like it tries the inside the typing, it gets me the as object definition within the as object folder, and that's the file that I have here open and I used when I was writing the prompt. So that's how like you can either like you can rely on this file by getting this object definition and having it open to generate a more like accurate, or someone else will be curious more to say SOQL query to return as object records in the org that are active, and you can rely on this file to be easier for you. And I want to return, for example, return only start date and end date. Here we were returning ID, name, start date, and date is active, and project name. So now here I'm saying and use is active in the where close. In the where close. So I can either rely on the TS file to have it open to ground my prompt and the output that is coming, or you can choose that you want to write specifically the fields API names in your prompt so the output respect what you requested. And I can as well say I want to sort results by created date, and I want to limit the output to be 2 records only. So if I change the prompt that I'm writing and I type here now what I just did, it will tell me, okay, you asked specifically you want to get the start and end date. So no more ID, no more name. The other fields are not there. It used the API name for the object that I wrote. It used the is active in my where close as I requested, and it's ordering the SOQL statement with the created date, and it's using the limit that I typed here to limit my result. So the point is, the more you type or the more you be specific on what you want in the prompt, the better the output would be. Like it won't know that you are expecting just to limit up to 10. For example, if I'm writing to generate an apex and I want to avoid the limits, I may write, okay, and make sure that we don't hit the limit. So that will add the limit for me with the maximum number of records allowed to retrieve. So the more you are specific and organized in how you are writing the prompt. And I'm not saying I'm the best or I'm writing perfect prompts. We are all learning. So you may try in your Visual Studio Code to type it in a way that different than what I wrote here, and you get a better output. So that would be a better result and better prompt that you use. So that's why it requires practice. So if you start now and try to play with it, the more you will use it, the more you will come with, okay, oh, I can do that as well, or write this as well, and get a better output from the result of the AI. So that's the other example that I wanted to show, that we can use it to write SOQL statements. So far, any questions about the 2 use cases or any comments? I'm checking the chat. Okay, the chat seems okay. Let's go to the next. The next is ask questions about your project. Like, for example, let me open a class that I have here, and I clear the chat. For example, here I had a class, a utility class prepared called math utility. It has a couple of methods that we have been using in previous sessions. And I don't know how to use like the method or how to call it. Like I don't know how to do that. So I can say, how can I use the method add numbers that accept list of numbers in another class? So I'm asking for help. How can I call this method? If I hit enter, it starts explaining to me like add number method accept a list, and it start explaining how it does. And it gave me an example class because my question was how to use it in another one. But see here, it did something like I saw this behavior. Sometimes it worked fine and sometimes no. So here it's giving me, it's creating an object from the math utility class. And that's if like you check the class and the method, they are static. We don't need to create an object to call them. So we are not supposed to create a math utility to call the add numbers. So I would say here, but the add numbers method is a static method. So it's sort of conversation, like you can ask something and it gives you an output. If you're not satisfied with the output, you can answer and it should fix the output that we'll see. So it said sorry, and then it's showing me the right way to do it. So it created a list of numbers because the method is expecting a list of integers. And it's creating here, calling the math utility because it's static. It's calling it with the class name. So it's saying math utility dot add numbers and pass the list of numbers. So it's showing me an example. But again, as you saw, like it didn't behave that way every time I tried it. Sometimes it worked fine and gave me the right syntax from the first go. But for example, as you saw here, it was trying to create an object from the class. So you need to have the knowledge that a static method cannot be called with an object. So you can say, okay, no, this is not right. Give me the right way. So it correct itself and it give you the right answer. So sometimes people need that because they have different methods or they have different utility they don't know how to use, or they need an example. So for example, they can take this and go to the developer console and try to run it. So sometimes we need a sample of how to use it so we can take it developer console or somewhere to test it and see it's behaving the way we want. So that's another use case that I saw, like I can use the dev assistant with, using the method I have and an assistance for the dev assistant on how to use it. Another way that I tried as well to use is providing templates for development. So we know sometimes there is repetitive use cases that we keep doing over and over again. For example, when you're working with triggers, we all write trigger handler. And I was in the session of talking about triggers, I was talking, okay, it's good to have or to know how to write different methods to handle the different events. So if someone forgot how to do it and they want to have a template they can reuse over and over again, we can do that. I can clear the chat here and I can, for example, take this prompt. I'm saying generate a trigger handler class template I can use as reference with multiple trigger handlers. So it can be an accounts trigger, contact, custom trigger, create all the methods to handle all the events. So we have, I believe, 7 events: before insert, after insert, update, before and after, and delete and undelete. So we have 7. So I'm saying I want to have all the events and pass for them all the context variables that are available for the trigger handler, because we want it to be ready to be used with any use case. So I will type this prompt here and let's see what, when I tried it offline, it gave me a good example. So let's see how it will behave now. So yeah, give me account trigger handler as an example. and it gave me handle before insert, and it have the list of new accounts, the handle before update, and it gave me like the before and after and the maps that can be used with the trigger handler with the before update, and it did the same for all the events here. Again, before using it, you will start like checking, is it right? They give me all the context variables that I may need. Did it include all the events or not? But it's a starting point, and it can give you like some explanation as well. And can you give me a sample on how to use it in trigger? I use the switch case for operation type. So I'm giving it a hint, or let's see first here, if I don't give this, if how it will behave. I will say, okay, can you give me an example how to use it in a trigger? So I created the template and I want to see how I can use it for the trigger. Here, account math utility trigger, usually we don't name it that way. And it's something when you are working, you can give it a name. Like I want to create a trigger with that name. I can create a method with that name. Here it gave me like, it mixed together the math utility and triggers. So it's not right. Like, and give me variable names as asterisk. So you can like, in that case, if you know how to write it, you can just ignore the wrong stuff that it's generating. And when this happens, usually I clear the chat and start over because it may, and okay, yeah. The reason why I did that as well is because I have the math utility open. So when we have a file open, it takes it into consideration. So let's try it again. I will say here, I want to use it. I will type here that I want a trigger handler and I want a trigger, but I will close the math utility. I'm the reason most probably that confused him because I had the math utility open. So the AI thought that I want to use as well the math utility in the output code, and it started mixing the math utility with the trigger, and that gave us like a very bad output. So we should close it. And I will write it again. I want a trigger handler and I want a class how to use it. So it started here to give me the trigger handler with the that's a trigger. Yeah, it's not good as well. We can do it in 2 steps. So here the trigger handler class, and here the trigger handler work fine now. And it's giving me all the events with the parameters that we need to pass, and it gave me an example. Trigger on object, and you start the object, and it started here to give me the if and else. If before, if is before, if insert, call the before insert. So it's showing me how to do it or how to call them. I can say for the trigger, can you use the switch case on operation type? So in the session for the trigger, we saw how we can rely on the if and else statements and how we can have a switch case instead. So it's something when you write the prompt, you can specify that you want the output in that format. So here it gave me the switch on the operation type as I requested. And then instead of if nested if and else, we have the switch case here on the operation type. So again, be mindful, like what we did was a mistake that we had the math utility open. So that confused like the prompt, try to use a context of the math utility. So the output was wrong. And also you have to think about like, read the output and make sure it's the way you want and it's the right way to do things. Something else, like I noticed here, we have the methods here are static. And again, here in the trigger, it used like created an object and started using the object you would fix that. So it's very important to know how to code yourself before using it as well. So that's another use case as well, how I try to use the Dev Assistant. Any questions so far? Okay, the chat, no questions. The next one is explaining and refactoring code. So you can, for example, let's clear here. I open my utility. So I have a class here. It's not a good practice that we don't have any commands. Like usually people add commands. What's the purpose of the class? What are the purposes of each of the methods? But we don't have. So here we have some, beside writing, you can do a backslash, and there is 3 commands so far. One is explain, one is test, and one is document. So let's try the explain. I wanted to explain to me the class that I have open. If I do explain, it will start thinking, checking the code, and it will start explaining to me. Sorry. So it tells me what's the class name I have, what are the methods. It detected like I have to add numbers, I have the divide numbers, subtract, and it starts explaining each of them. And it starts at the end give you another summary after explaining each of the methods. The benefit of that is that sometimes, like when you're working on a project, it's very important to remind everyone to have comments and to write proper code. Sometimes it's not there, and you want to have a quick like jump start, and maybe the function names are not very meaningful as well. And I want to fix something. I know there is an issue in the method that send an email. So the explanation can help me figure out which method I need to jump in and start working on faster. And it can give me as well, if I'm not a coder and someone tells me, okay, I'm going to work on this utility class, but I'm not sure if it's the right one or something, you can have a high level understanding of what's happening in this class with the explain command, because it can tell you what is good or what is bad, or how it's working, and the purpose of the class in general as a summary, and the explanation for each and every single method as well in the class. So that's another way. Another thing as well, you can ask to refactor. So I added this method, for example. I know we can write it in shorter form, and we can use ternary operator, or we can return directly with this one line what we want to do. Simply here, I was trying to figure out if I send a number to tell me it's positive or negative. Like if it's positive number, it should return true. If it's negative, it should return false. So I can say here, let me clear. I can say, for example, refactor is positive number method, please. I will ask the dev assistant to refactor the method for me and tell me if what I'm doing is right or wrong. Here it tell me like, okay, we can use the ternary operator, for example. We check the number is greater than or equal 0. If it's true, it would return true. If else, it will return false. So it can give you a suggestion for changes. And if you like it, you can either copy. So you can copy the code and come here and paste, or I can highlight the code I have here and choose the other icon. I can use it to move the changes from the dev assistant to the area I have it highlighted. Or if I had the cursor here, I want to see them next to each other, I can do this. So if you want to replace a piece of code, you can highlight it and use the move insert code at cursor. It will replace everything for you. So that's another use case that I saw that we can use the Dev Assistant with. Like if you are not sure if you have the best practices, or if it's the right way, or if there is shorter way, you may ask the Dev Assistant to show you a refactor or another way. And again, when I was trying this offline, I had a different output. It wasn't the same output you see here in the response. It was a different one. So even the AI can change. So at the end, it's up to you to take the recommendation or not if you think it's better or not, or you think it's more readable or not. So you have to be the person to decide whether you will go with the recommendation or not they give you. So don't use it just as is without reviewing the output. The next thing is adding and writing comments in code. So we have another command here. I will try it with you. It gave me different behavior when I was working with it. It's document, and I have the math utility class open on the right, and I will write document and hit enter. One time when I tried it, it behaved as you can see here, that it went through the method one by one and started to add comments. So it started, this method calculates the sum of list of number. This add the sum of two integers. So it started to add comments for you in the code. And again, you can as simple as highlighting the whole class and replacing with the output that has the comments as well. But again, it's better for you to double check it got everything, didn't miss any method, the logic is the same, you need to review. The other thing I noticed that, and here it's giving you an explanation. One time or a couple of times, like when I tried the command document, sometimes it didn't give me the inline comments, and sometimes it gave me just the explanation as if I did the explain. So in that case, I tried myself like, can you give me inline comments for the code to understand it very well? And I had the class open, and that gave me the same output, like it started. But when I said like I want to understand it more, that gave me even more comments. In general, as a best practice, we don't like adding too much comments. Like too much comments can be confusing in the readability. Like this is too much that every line will have a comment on it. But sometimes if you are just starting working on a file, you want to understand it. It doesn't mean you have to take this copy and paste, but you can go through it. Okay, yeah, here we are looping through the numbers to add the sum, this to print, this to return the value. So it can help you with more comments here in the Dev Assistant to understand more. Definitely, this is a simpler class, so you don't need to do that, but sometimes you are working with AI callouts, batch jobs, queuable, and there is more complicated logic there. So it's a good idea to be able even to get this level of comments that can help you understand more how to do things and how to understand the code in a better way. So that's another thing, like you can rely on the document. Document will be giving you enough comments if you just want to enhance like your code and you want to replace it, because we don't want too much comments. But if you want to understand more, or if the document command didn't work with you as the way we are expecting to have inline comments, you can give it specific prompt that you want inline comments to understand, or to document, or to understand very well each step. And based on what you wrote, it will give you the output in terms of the comments as well. Any feedback, any comments so far? Okay. We have here 3 more examples that we want to go through for the Dev Assistant. So one of them is generating LWC. And that's something like I tried to work with, tried before the session, and it was cool to see the output. Let's close the math utility and I will get the prompt for you. So if, for example, you want to get, or you have a task that you want to generate an LWC to do specific things, and you have specific requirement, you may be able to generate what you want from the Dev Assistant based on the prompt you will enter, and it can be a starting point. It can be good enough to use it, and it may be not as good as you wish, but it can enhance your velocity by having a starting point. So here I try to say, okay, I want to create an LWC component. So I'm saying I want an LWC component, uh, and I need all the files needed with it. I want it to be available on the home page. And I said I want the code for the meta file to give me that it's exposed on the home page. And I want, because without typing that, it didn't give me everything. I said, I want the JavaScript file, I want the HTML file, and if needed, the CSS file, because without writing all these details, I noticed that sometimes it doesn't give me the meta file, or sometimes it gives me the JavaScript, but not the HTML file. So I tried my best to be as specific as possible, saying where I'd be using the LWC. So that will impact the meta file. And then I'm specifying I want the JavaScript, the HTML, and if there is any CSS needed, I want it as well. Uh, and then I started saying, okay, I need an input text where the user will type an email address and click on a button. I want to click on a button to verify that the email they entered is valid or not. And after verifying the email format, we should display a message to the user if the email is valid or not. Don't show any message by default when we open the component. And that's because I had tried before and give me a message by default that the email is invalid, even though I didn't enter anything. So let's try to hit generate using such prompt. It started to give me here the HTML. It gave me the JavaScript file. And did it stop? Okay, it didn't give me the meta file. Last time when I tried it, it gave me the meta file. I can tell him, okay, and I need the meta file as well. Okay, so it gave me here. So we can try it together and see what's the output it gave me. So I will go to LWC here and I will create a new Lightning Web component. I'll give it the name that we have and I'll say I want to generate it. So it open the HTML, JavaScript, and meta. And then I will go to the Agentforce. So here, that's the HTML first thing. So I will replace it. And then I will go to the JavaScript. I will copy everything and replace the output. And then the meta file as well, I will replace everything with the generate. Let's try it. I didn't review the code and how clean it is or how here. Okay, so here it's relying on email to verify. So it's asking for this class. We can use the JavaScript to get me the verification, but here it's asking, you don't need an additional JavaScript file. Okay, maybe what we can do then, we can specify here HTML file. I need an input, show message. The email verification should be done in the LWC JavaScript file. No apex needed. And that's how I mean, like it can be perfect. Like the first time I generated it didn't give me any apex and it used a regular expression to check it. This time, for example, it generated an apex. So it doesn't mean always that it will generate the best thing for you. Here, I replace that. And the HTML, let's take it as is here. And this time it created the CSS. So we can add it as well and see what's the output. Like we want to verify that the output is right. So I create here the CSS file for the LWC. When we create LWC, it has multiple files, HTML, JavaScript, the meta to tell me where it will be exposed or how it can be used. And if we need, we add a CSS file. So here I will copy the CSS file. Okay. And here it's exposed to the home page. So let's deploy and let's try it together. Like, I don't know if it will work as expected. Is it good or not? So let's go to the home page and I will add the component, edit page. And we want here email verify. I will add it and let's go back and see it together. Last time when I tried to generate it, it didn't give me a toast message, for example. It gave me a text underneath true, like valid or invalid. So let's see here, test@.com. So it should give me it's invalid, give me a toast message, please enter valid. And it showed invalid text here. Here, if I do another one, valid email address, valid email. So again, we didn't check at all the output, if it's right, if it's wrong, like if it's best practices or not. You have in real life, when you use it, you have to go and check, like, do we really need CSS? We have the out of the box for LWC, like tags that we can use. Maybe we don't need it. Is the HTML the best? This is the way I want. We have like the text showing here. We don't need it. We can remove it. Is the JavaScript written the way we want or not? So at least they give you a start, something you can start with, you can add on top of it, or you can fix it. And that's how you can use it to generate LWC. And again, when you are writing your prompt, you have to be specific. Like, I asked it to give me the meta file, the JavaScript, the HTML, based on my testing before. Sometimes when I do that, like without typing and specifying everything I need, it didn't give me the meta file, or it gave me the JavaScript, but not the HTML. So the more you are specific and clear and you type everything, like you saw, for example, when we didn't type that we want the validation for the email to be in the JavaScript, it assumed that we have a Apex class that will be calling for the validation. So it's very, very good idea to write everything you need in the prompt, because that will impact the output and how accurate the output is. And we rely on your knowledge as developers to make sure before using it if it's good or bad, and fix anything that needs to be fixed. I think we are good for today. Next time, we'll talk about how we can use it for Apex, method, classes, triggers, how we can use it for generating test classes, and then we'll continue to see the command palette, inline, autocomplete, and the test generation. And I will encourage anyone who has been using it, please come next time with some prompts, some use cases to share your experience as well, because some of the use cases I was showing you in the Dev Assistant, they are not documented like in Salesforce, but they were output from my experience, or like my playing around with the Dev Assistant, how I can use it to achieve different scenarios. So I would love to hear from you next time. What else can be done in the Dev Assistant other than the ones I have listed here, that you have the experience and you try to use it for, and it was great experience for you. Next time, we'll take it from generating Apex and we'll continue with the rest, and then the use cases that you will come and share with us. It was great to have you all today, and hopefully I will see you next time.